Every story has a turning point, a moment when everything changes. The turning point.
It started with something stupid. I needed to print a field trip form for Ava. Mine was upstairs, dead, buried under laundry. Brian's laptop was on the kitchen counter, open. He never leaves it open. Ever. That should have been my first clue. But I told myself, it's nothing, just grab the form, print, close the lid, move on with your day. Easy. Except when I clicked the browser, it didn't open to Google or ESPN or news. It opened to a flower delivery confirmation. Okay, sweet maybe. I smiled for a second. Then I saw the message. Like in 89, yours always. M. I just stared. 89, I was 11 in 1989. Brian would have been, 17? The delivery address wasn't familiar. It wasn't our house, and it wasn't anyone from his family that I recognized. I copied it, Googled it, private home, big one, gated. I blinked, my mouth felt dry. I scrolled down, more orders, not just one bouquet, dozens. Same name, same message style, some even more intimate. Still dreaming about that last Sunday? You always were the better cook. And then one that made my stomach drop. Next time, wear the black silk. I closed the laptop. Just shut it. My hand was shaking. I wasn't even looking for anything. That's the part that kills me. I wasn't suspicious. I wasn't doubting him. I trusted him. And now I couldn't stop seeing that name in my head. M. Lewis. Not a colleague, not a client, not someone from the gym. Just M, and I had a feeling this wasn't the kind of woman you picture when you hear affair. This wasn't about lust. This was something older, heavier, something that started long before I ever showed up. I tried to forget about it, I really did. That night, I acted like nothing happened. I made dinner, asked Brian about his day, nodded in the right places. I even kissed him goodnight. And the whole time, my chest felt tight, like I was holding my breath underwater. M. Lewis. I kept repeating it in my head like some awful chant. The next morning, when he left for work, I went back to the laptop. But the flower order history was gone. Browser cleared. He must have noticed. I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. I didn't even know what I was accusing him of. I just knew something was wrong. So I started digging. I searched our bank statements. Nothing obvious. Most of the flower purchases were small enough to fly under radar. Some even billed under generic names like Blooms United or Morning Petals. But then I checked his Venmo. One payment stood out. $650. Labeled ML Tutoring. Tutoring? Brian isn't a tutor, and our kids don't need one. That name again. M. Lewis. Now it was personal. I opened Facebook, LinkedIn, anywhere I could search for names. There were too many M. Lewises, but one of them hit me like a slap. Margaret Lewis. She looked older, maybe late 60s, but put together, sophisticated, confident. Her profile said retired English teacher from Brian's old high school. My heart stuttered. Couldn't be, except she was tagged in a photo. An old reunion post, class of 92. And standing 2 rows behind her, grinning awkwardly in a school blazer, Brian. I zoomed in. He looked like a kid. She looked almost exactly the same, just younger, softer. I felt my skin go cold. This wasn't just some fling. This wasn't new. This was a woman from his past, a real woman, someone who had known him before I ever did. And somehow, he was still seeing her now. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay next to Brian in bed, pretending to breathe evenly, eyes open in the dark. I kept staring at the ceiling like it might somehow give me answers. But the only thing I saw was her face. Margaret Lewis, English teacher, retired, 68 according to her public records, and someone who, apparently, had never truly left my husband's life. He was 17 when he graduated. She would have been in her mid-30s then. And now, 30 years later, here we were, still them. I got out of bed around 4 a.m. and went downstairs. I sat in the kitchen with a blanket and my phone, just thinking, this wasn't just about an affair. That's what bothered me the most. If he cheated with someone younger, someone from work, someone random, I'd be furious, yes. But this felt deeper, older, twisted. Because what kind of man keeps something like that going for 30 years? What kind of woman participates in it? By morning, I had made a decision. I needed to see her. Not confront, not scream, not yet, but see her. Face to face. Just once. I waited until Brian left, kissed him goodbye at the door, watched him pull out of the driveway like it was any other Tuesday. Then I changed clothes, printed the flower order receipt I had screenshotted, and typed her address into my GPS. 33 minutes. That was all that stood between me and whatever truth had been hiding all these years. Her house was exactly what I imagined. A tall iron gate, ivy-covered walls, the kind of mailbox that doesn't wobble when you open it. Old money. Or very smart money. I parked across the street and waited. I didn't know for what. Maybe to see her, to be sure. Maybe for the courage to actually do something. At 10:12 a.m., the front door opened. She stepped out slowly, dressed in a beige coat with camel-colored gloves. Elegant. Effortless. Her hair was silver, cropped close, styled with intention. She didn't look like someone's affair. She looked like someone's authority figure. She walked down to the sidewalk and bent to pick up her newspaper. That's when I noticed something strange. Her gait. It was slow. Not fragile, but deliberate. Like someone recovering from something, or someone whose body had already started betraying them. And yet, she was beautiful. Not in the magazine cover way, but in the way you can't fake. Composed, collected, like she'd never once in her life been embarrassed. I didn't get out of the car. I just sat there, heart pounding, staring like some coward with a steering wheel. She didn't see me, but I saw her. And suddenly, I wasn't just jealous. I was insecure, confused, afraid. Because if this was the woman my husband kept in his heart all these years, while he married me, built a life with me, had children with me, then what was I? A consolation prize? A safe second choice? A placeholder for something he never got over? I drove home in silence, didn't even turn on the radio. And when Brian walked in that evening, smelling like aftershave and traffic and acting like nothing had changed, I realized something chilling. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore, because maybe he thought I'd never figure it out, or worse, maybe he thought I wouldn't leave. I didn't plan what I was going to say. I rehearsed it in my head a dozen times, but nothing stuck. Every version of the conversation made me sound pathetic, weak, desperate. And maybe I was all of those things, but I wasn't going to hand her my dignity on a plate. Still, 3 days after I saw her, I was back. Same street, same gate, same shaking hands on the steering wheel. I almost drove away, twice, but something in me, maybe rage, maybe heartbreak, kept the engine off. I rang the bell. She answered faster than I expected. No surprise in her eyes, no confusion, just calm, as if she knew, as if she'd been expecting me. "Lora, isn't it?" she said, with a voice as smooth as her coat. She stepped aside and motioned toward the hallway. "Come in." I hesitated, just for a second, then stepped through the door. The house smelled like wood polish and something faintly floral. Classic, quiet, too quiet. I followed her into the kitchen. Marble counters, framed art, everything curated, nothing random. She poured tea without asking. Black, no sugar. She knew what I'd drink. We sat, and for a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she broke the silence. "I was wondering when you'd show up," she said, folding her hands neatly in her lap. I blinked. You knew I'd find out? She smiled, not unkindly. I knew eventually you'd stop pretending not to. I felt heat rise in my throat. My heart thudded. I'm not here for games, I said quietly. And yet you're playing one, she replied gently. You came here wanting answers, but only the kind you can handle. I hated how calm she was, like I was the one having a tantrum in a museum. I want the truth, I said. How long has whatever this is, been going on? She looked me straight in the eye. 31 years. It hit like a slap. I met Brian when he was 16, she continued, no trace of shame in her voice. He was brilliant, starving for attention, easy to admire, easy to mold. He didn't have much structure at home. I became that. You were his teacher. I was more than that, she said softly. And so was he. I stared at her. Do you love him? She tilted her head. Define love. That broke me. Something in my chest cracked. This entire time, I whispered, you've been in the background, watching my marriage, touching my life without my consent. She didn't flinch. I picked you, Lora, she said. You were the safe one. Smart, dependable, non-confrontational. I knew he'd never feel threatened by you. I knew he'd settle. My breath caught. You're lying. Number I gave you the life he needed to build. I helped him grow. You were part of that. I stood. I couldn't be in her house anymore. I couldn't breathe in that perfumed air, sit in that chair, drink that tea. You're sick, I said. You don't own people. You don't design marriages. She stood too, slowly, smiled again. You're right, I don't own him. I just shaped him. And when something is shaped by your hands, it never really forgets the touch. I walked out before I screamed. As I sat in my car, staring through the windshield at nothing, I felt something strange settle over me. It wasn't just anger. It was the sense that my entire life, my marriage, my family, even my choices, had been part of someone else's design. And I didn't know who I hated more, her or him. He made lasagna that night. Brian, standing in our kitchen, humming to himself, layering sauce and cheese like everything was normal. Like I hadn't just sat across from a woman who had helped pick me out of a crowd like a dress off a sale rack. Like my entire life hadn't just cracked down the center. I watched him through narrowed eyes, arms folded. He was too relaxed, too calm, not even a hint of suspicion. No questions like, how was your day, or, you doing okay? Just, hope you're hungry, babe. That's when it hit me. He knew. Not just about the flowers. Not just that I'd been digging. He knew I'd gone to see her. And this whole performance, the dinner, the smile, the casual routine, it was all part of the act. I started replaying everything. The past few weeks, conversations we'd had, things he'd said. He hadn't slipped up, not once, because there was nothing to slip. He wasn't hiding anymore. And suddenly, I realized something that chilled me more than anything Margaret Lewis had said. He didn't think I'd leave. He was betting on my silence, on my loyalty, on my unwillingness to blow up the life we'd built. It wasn't arrogance, it was calculation. And that terrified me. Later that night, after the kids went to bed, I sat in the living room with my laptop. I told him I had work. He nodded and poured himself a glass of wine. I waited until I heard the shower start upstairs. Then I opened his email. I knew the password. Of course I did. We shared everything, right? Except, apparently, we didn't. His inbox was clean. Too clean. But the archived folders? That's where I found it. Hundreds of emails, going back years, most of them from her. Some short. Thinking of you. Some long, full of memories. References to vacations I never knew about. Inside jokes I couldn't decipher. Photos. Attachments. scanned letters. One of them handwritten, yellowed, dated 1991. And every reply from him, measured, warm, familiar, like writing to someone who knew every inch of your soul. And there, in one message from just last month, "Don't worry, she suspects, but she'll bury it. She always does." My hands went cold. He wasn't just cheating, he was using me, betting on my ability to repress, to pretend, to smile through it, like I'd done for years without even realizing. I didn't cry, not that night. I just sat there, numb, scrolling through the wreckage of what I thought was my marriage. He walked in wearing only a towel, hair damp, grinning like a man without guilt. Coming to bed? I looked at him, really looked. He was still the man I married. But now, I saw it. The slight curve at the edge of his mouth, the confidence in his eyes, the way he walked into the room like nothing could touch him, because he believed I would stay, because I always had. But that night, for the first time, I didn't follow him upstairs. I just sat there staring at the screen, and a thought settled into my mind so clearly, it felt like a spoken sentence. "You're not afraid of losing me. You're afraid I'll stop playing the role you gave me." The next morning, I made coffee like I always do. 2 mugs, cream in his, none in mine, just the way he likes it. I slid his cup across the counter. He smiled. "Thanks, babe." I smiled back. But something in my smile must have felt different. Office. Not quite right. Because he blinked, paused, like a dog catching the scent of something it can't place. I didn't ask him where he was going that day, didn't check his calendar, didn't text him at lunch. I let him float in the silence of my new calm, because now I understood something important. Confrontation is predictable. Silence is terrifying. I started watching him, closely. Every movement, every pause, every twitch. I noticed how he glanced at his phone with his body turned slightly away from me. How he smiled when texting. Not the way he smiled at me. Different. Private. How he suddenly took calls on the back porch instead of at the kitchen table. And every time he tried to touch me, brush my arm, kiss the back of my neck, I didn't pull away. I let him. But I didn't lean in. And he felt it. That Thursday night, we were sitting on the couch watching TV. Something dumb. Forgettable. A comedy we'd seen before. He looked over at me mid-episode and said, "Everything okay?" I turned to him and tilted my head. "Why wouldn't it be?" He gave a quick laugh. "I don't know, you've been quiet lately." "I've been thinking," I said. "About what?" I smiled gently. "About us." He stiffened slightly, but only slightly. Then he reached for my hand. I let him take it. "Hey," he said, lowering his voice. "If something's bothering you, talk to me. We're good at that, right?" I looked him in the eye. I thought about telling him I'd read the emails, that I'd seen every lie typed out like a grocery list, that I'd sat across from the woman who had orchestrated my entire life like it was a play she wrote in her 20s. But instead I said, "Of course, we're fine." And he smiled, relieved, too relieved. That's when I knew. He was more afraid of losing control than losing me. Later that night, while he snored beside me, I slipped downstairs. I opened a new private email account, created a hidden folder on my laptop, started backing everything up: messages, photos, screenshots, timelines. I didn't know what I was building yet, but it felt like armor. Not revenge, not yet, just preparation. Because if Margaret had shaped him, and he had shaped me, then maybe, just maybe, I could reshape myself into someone he wouldn't see coming. It took me 2 weeks to piece it all together. 2 weeks of pretending, 2 weeks of morning kisses and dinner conversations, 2 weeks of "How was work?" and "Can you grab milk on your way home?" And during those 2 weeks, I collected everything. Every email, every invoice, every flower delivery, every photo, every word he thought would stay hidden. in the folds of some archived folder. One night, after the kids were asleep, I printed it all. Not on a drive, not in a file. On paper, tangible, heavy, real. I put it all into a clean white envelope and labeled it with one word in simple ink. Son. Because Margaret had one. I remembered now. She talked about him once at a school event years ago. He had kids of his own, a wife. He even lived nearby. And based on the family photo I found on Facebook, I was guessing he had no idea who his mother really was. The next day, I dressed carefully. Neutrally. No drama, no red lipstick, no battle armor. Just me. I drove to his office. I didn't announce myself. I just left the envelope at the front desk with a note. If this were your mother, you'd want to know. LC. I didn't include a return address. I didn't need to. He'd know how to find me if he wanted to, but I didn't care if he did. Because that envelope wasn't for him. It was for her. When I got home, Brian was in the backyard, grilling. He waved at me through the glass like we were still that couple from our Christmas card. He looked happy, relaxed. And maybe he was, because Margaret had taught him that love was a performance, a controlled script, and I had followed it. Until now. That evening, I waited. I didn't have to wait long. At 7:12 p.m., and his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, froze. I watched his jaw tighten, his thumb hover above the screen. Then he put the phone down slowly, turned to me and said, too casually, "Do you know anything about this message from Adam?" I took a sip of wine. "Who's Adam?" "Margaret's son." I nodded. "Oh, that Adam." He stared at me, studied me. "You didn't—" I tilted my head. "Didn't what?" "You didn't do something stupid, right?" I laughed softly. No emotion in it. "I think we passed stupid a long time ago, Brian." He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time, like he couldn't quite find the edges of the person sitting in front of him. And that's when I knew. I had become someone he didn't control. He didn't sleep that night. I did. He didn't say anything the next morning. Not about the envelope. Not about Margaret. Not about the silence between us that had stretched so wide it could have swallowed the whole house. He just kissed the top of my head, gently, hesitantly, and left for work like he always did. But the hesitation told me everything. For the first time, he wasn't sure of the ending. I didn't leave that day, not the next either. But I started packing, quietly, drawer by drawer. Not out of rage, but with the calm of someone folding a part of their life and setting it down where it belongs, in the past. I didn't announce it. There was no speech, no final confrontation, because I didn't need him to understand. I only needed him to feel the absence. A week later, I was gone. Not far. I took a rental downtown, close enough to pick up the kids, far enough to breathe again. It was small, with bare walls and terrible lighting. But it was mine. And more importantly, I didn't flinch when the door opened. He called the first night. Then he showed up 2 days later. Roses? My favorite. Or so he thought. "You made your point," he said quietly, standing in the doorway. "Can we talk?" I didn't invite him in. I just stood there. "I'm not angry," he added. I miss you." I nodded. "I know." His face shifted. Like he didn't expect that answer. Like he expected fire, not ice. "I still love you, Lora," he said. And I believed him. But it wasn't enough. "You told her I'd bury it," I said calmly. "That I'd pretend, like always." He swallowed. I was wrong. "No," I said. "You were right. I did bury it for years. Until I realized I wasn't protecting our marriage. I was protecting your comfort." He opened his mouth, but I stopped him. "Brian, I'm not here to punish you. I'm not even angry anymore." He looked almost hopeful. And then I said the one thing he never expected. "I'm just done." He didn't move, didn't argue, just stood there like a man who realized the game didn't end. It was taken away from him mid-play, and he was left alone on the board. I closed the door gently, not slamming it, not locking it, just closing it. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about finally choosing myself. And this time, no one else got to rewrite my ending.
If this story moved you, there's more to come. Subscribe and don't miss the next turning point.